9th, 2019 regular board meeting of the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. Meeting is hereby called to order. Will you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
President Andrews.
Present.
Vice President Mason.
Present.
Director Lassane.
Present.
Director Mitchell.
Present.
Director Nankar.
Present.
Student Representative Tran.
Dr. Cohn?
Yes, thank you very much. This evening, we have two really fun recognitions, and they're a little bit more substantial than what we typically do in a regular board meeting. Nevertheless, we're going to proceed and have a great time with these tonight. Before we start the process of adopting the agenda and all that sort of business, we're going to invite the Everett High School drama program students to come on into the boardroom. They're going to essentially encircle us this evening. They're going to perform some numbers from their spring musical, Footloose. Their director, Sarah Coyley, is going to tell you a little bit about the musical, a little bit about the students, a little bit about the program, and then we're going to hear some wonderful music, some wonderful voices. And for those of you who are Kevin Bacon fans or Footloose fans or musical fans, I'm sure you're going to enjoy this evening. There will not, however, be any exploding flower manufacturing equipment this evening, like in the movie. So if Sarah wouldn't mind coming forward.
Are they just going to be around the room?
All the way around the room, yes. Hey, gang, you want to come up behind the board table? And then where the board members are going to go to the back of the room. Yeah, so come on up here. Yeah, come on up here. If you're facing come on up here, yeah, all the way up here around the board table.
Good job.
Okay.
Forward to it.
Where'd Sarah go?
Forward to it.
Good.
So, we're gonna just, because
All right.
we're going up and down, can you guys spread out just a little bit more and come around the back, just a little bit more?
That's Sarah over there directing students.
Yeah, go ahead and fill it all the way to that wall. Thank you, Sean. And don't get quite so close, just
What should I spread out a little bit?
Brilliant, there we go. You guys can.
Hello everybody, my name is Erin Weber. I am president of the Drama Club, and on behalf of the Everett High School Drama Program and our director and advisor, Sarah Fraley, we would like to thank you for having us here today. We really appreciate it. A little bit about our program. It includes a dynamic after-school club that presents not only our shows, but a full-year improv and surplus events. So it's not just the shows that we see every year. We've got a lot more going on. We also have an in-depth performance and tech theater class, quite a few of those. We currently have about 200 students in the entire program. So as you can see, there's a lot of people here. We have a cast of about 51, and we'll have a tech crew of 12 joining us soon. Today we'll be performing for you selections from our current production of Footloose the Musical. It opens May 3rd. We have 6 performances, and it goes through May 11th. For more information, feel free to visit our website or reach out to Sarah. Without further ado, enjoy Footloose.
Everything I've ever learned that gets me through the worst, I've learned at my mama's knee. Now Every time I turn around, I turn to mama first. And you'd be wise to memorize what mama says to me. Now, mama ain't let me wrong yet, and I'm living proof.
That's kind of a frightening thought, isn't it?
Mama says don't use a toaster while standing in the shower. Now, who could argue with that? Mama says don't hold your breath for longer than an hour. The woman knows where it's at. And mama says it doesn't matter if you're a king or you're a clown. Once you drive up a mountain, you can't back down. You can't back down, Randy. I never had the pleasure of meeting my mama, but these boys have. Come help me out there, fellas.
Mama says.
Don't drink hot coffee while lying down in bed. Don't even give it a thought.
It's a mess, Mama says.
Never eat anything that's bigger than your head. Is she a whiz or what?
Oh yes.
And mama says.
She says.
It doesn't matter if you're a king.
Mama says.
Or you're a clown. Once you
you can't back down.
whoa, once you drive up a mountain,
You can't back down.
mama makes a lot of sense to me. Listen, she's clear and concise.
She's concise.
Daddy says I'm always listen. What I say, hey, is free advice. You wouldn't expect at that price.
Maybe your mom ought to write my speech.
Oh, hell no. Everybody think my mama's full of marbles. But you gotta listen to me, she has some really good ideas. Hear me now.
Mama says.
What you believe is all you really. And I believe that she's right.
Mama says.
Just means you're ready to fight. And mama says it doesn't matter if you drive a hot bargain or drive around town. Once you drive up a mountain, you can't back down. Once you drive up a mountain, you can't back down.
You could have guessed that was Mama Says. And now we'll be doing Holding Out for a Hero.
Where have all the good men gone? And where are all the gods? Yeah! Where's the streetwise Hercules to fight the rising I'd like to know. Isn't there a white knight upon a fiery steed? Late at night I toss and I turn. I toss and I turn. And I dream of what I need. I need a hero. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Somewhere after midnight in my wildest fantasy, somewhere just beyond my reach, there's someone reaching back for me. Racing on the thunder and rising with the heat. Do do do. It's gonna take a Superman to save. I need a hero. I'm holding out for a hero till the end of the night. He's gotta be strong, and he's gotta be fast, and he's gotta be fast. the fight. I need a hero. He's gotta be sure, and he's gotta be soon, and he's gotta be larger than life, larger than life. Do 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 do, do 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 do. I need a hero. Final number today, we'll be performing the classic Footloose. Again, we would like to thank you so much for letting us perform today. It was an honor.
Been working so hard, I'm punching my card. 8 hours for what? Oh, tell me what I got. Been working so hard, I'm punching my card. 8 hours for what? For what? For what? For what? For what? For what?
Been working too damn hard. I'm punching that same card.
8 hours busting my butt. Oh, tell me what I got.
I got this feeling that time just holding me down.
I hate this feeling, time is holding me down. I'll hit the ceiling, or else I'll tear up this town.
Tonight I got footloose, footloose. Kick off the Sunday shoes. Please, Louise, pull me off of my knees. Jack, get back. Come on before we crack. Lose your blues. Everybody got footloose.
Hey, Red, I heard you moving away. Red's leaving Chicago? You're leaving Chicago?
That's right, I'm leaving you clowns for the wide open spaces.
What do you mean, since he's moving to some little hick town nobody's ever heard of?
Hey, people have heard of it.
Oh yeah? What's the name of it?
Folks are flocking to it from all over.
What's the name of
You can
it?
find it on any map.
What's the name of it?
Beaumont?
Beaumont? Where the hell is Beaumont?
You're playing so cool, obeying every rule. Dig way down in your heart, you're burning, yearning for
Somebody to tell you that life ain't passing you by.
something passing me by.
I'm trying to tell you, it will if you don't even try.
If you'd only come.
Footloose!
Whoa.
Footloose! Footloose!
I just wanted to take just a moment, also just to say thank you so much. This was an honor to be here, and we hope to make this a regular thing where we're able to come and share the magic that is happening in our high school. The arts are valuable. I want to cry. We just I'm just gonna state this real quick. So right before we came, I turn into kind of a little bit of a banshee before we go do something, and I'm like, you're boring me. Let's do this. Let's kick it into gear. And so what I see here today, though, when they have the skills, they have the talent, they have all of that, but what they have most importantly is they have heart and they have drive and they have so much potential. So the arts, I feel like, is bringing out all of those magnificent qualities in our students, and it's allowing them to thrive in ways that they never thought possible. So thank you. They're valuable. As you can see, this is huge and it matters. Thank you.
Directors, where'd you go? Would you like to shake kids' hands before they leave?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. Why don't you just start around the room that way? And come on, yeah. Why don't you just start around the room that way? Come on, back up here.
As you can see, they weren't boring when you're here, yeah? You're rehearsing and they're like,
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Oh gosh, I need a hero. Oh my goodness. He's gotta be straight from the line.
So we'll go ahead and return to the agenda, which will move into the adoption and then the next recognition item.
Okay. Wow. It's fabulous.
It was crazy.
So we will move on to adoption of the agenda. Dr. Cohn, will you please introduce this afternoon's agenda?
Yes, consistent with the plans established at your 2018 summer planning workshop, tonight's agenda contains several elements related to both the district's strategic plan and the board's annual goals, and just a little bit of good plain fun tonight. There's a segment for routine business, there's a segment for recognition items, one for board comments, a segment for the superintendent's report, a segment for strategic progress reporting, one for information items, one for unfinished business, one for new business, and one for upcoming agenda items. Following changes have been made since we published the agenda to you. 4.1, adoption of the agenda, was amended by adding the timing sheet post-publication. Item 9.1, the superintendent's report, will be updated during the meeting as is customary for regular meetings. The board may elect to change the order of business by a majority vote of the members. Please note this is not the point in your agenda to request items be removed from the consent agenda. In all other respects, the agenda is as it was published to you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Mason and seconded by Director Mitchell to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries, and the agenda is adopted. And we will move on to Section 5 recognitions.
All right. The more formal recognition this evening really is one that follows what we just experienced in the boardroom. You know, we don't have all that many opportunities, frankly, in a regular formal business meeting of this nature to recognize the arts, recognize performing arts, recognize visual arts, recognize the type of performances that students exhibit throughout their careers here in Everett Public Schools. This is one of those meetings where we do that. We take a little bit of time to enjoy the fruits of the kids' labors, the staff's labors, the parents' labors, the support that they provide. Tonight is special in that it is the meeting at which we recognize the winners from the annual NAACP Snohomish County Chapter celebration honoring Dr. Martin Luther King. As part of that celebration, students are invited to submit essays and art for the Prodigies of Peace competition. Student works judged by members of the community, and students earning first, second, third place and honorable mention awards in each of the grade bands in each of the 2 creative categories are honored for their inspirational works. This evening, we're going to ask Dr. Stewart to introduce the principals of the schools where we have winners, and the principals are going to introduce those winners because we have so many winners from Everett Public Schools this year in all of Snohomish County, a very large share of the winners in Snohomish County. We don't really have time for performances this evening. So what we're going to be doing is providing certificates to the students that were signed by all the board members, and I'm going to ask Dr. Stewart to go ahead and start those introductions.
So good evening. We often call the week after spring break to the end of the school year celebration season, and we've certainly launched it here tonight, haven't we? Yes. And I know each adult in this room really enjoys when this boardroom is packed with children. So we've done that tonight, and I want to start out, and we're going to recognize each one of you this evening. So I'm going to invite the principal from Evergreen, Michelle Waddell, to come up with her teacher. And I have a feeling the students didn't arrive yet. So why don't you come up and introduce the teacher, and then at least tell us about the students, okay? And if they arrive, we'll maybe have time to recognize them later. Okay?
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for having us here tonight. It's my honor and privilege to recognize our students whose words were so eloquent, and they really represent the idea of being the change that we wish to see in this world. I'd like to introduce Kate Bafnese to describe the students to you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm exceptionally honored to have all 3 of these students this year, and I'm really excited because they're 7th graders, so we get to keep them at Evergreen one more year. Shannon Chang won first place for her essay. Mandy Garvin won 2nd place, and Kara Popkins won 3rd place. And they're going to be very upset they missed this, but they're all very busy doing track and music and other things, so I'm sure that something came up, but they're just exceptional, hardworking, fabulous students that we're very lucky to have at Everett.
Thank you.
And then I'd like to introduce Tina Farias, principal of View Ridge Elementary, and she will introduce the teachers and 2 students. Ms. Farias? Invite them to come up here.
Thank you. Let's start with our 5th grade student, Isabel Rice, and her teacher, Miss York. Come on up. Isabel is one of our 5th grade students in our highly capable program, and she won first place for her essay. I'd like to invite our 2nd, 5th grader up, Jack Franklin, and his teacher, Mrs. North. Jack Franklin is a 5th grader in Mrs. North's class, and he received 3rd place for his essay.
Next, I'd like to introduce Annette Sternberg, who's the assistant principal from Jefferson Elementary, and she will introduce her teacher and her student.
Good afternoon. I would like to recognize a 5th grade student, Savannah Segura Vargas, for 2nd place in the art category, along with her fabulous teacher, Miss Ann Din.
Well, it's my pleasure to introduce and invite Principal Bruce Rhodes of Cedarwood Elementary up to lectern to introduce his students.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. The arts really do express other ways that the kids learn, so we are appreciative. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Baharnovich and Abby Diaz, our second grade student who is getting an honorable mention in art. Good job, Abby. And then our fifth grade student, Winston Chen, I'd like to invite him up for first place in his essay contest, and Ms. Stingley was not able to be here, but I would like to welcome Winston up. And then our fourth grade teacher, and it's her birthday today, Leah Wilson. She also is a fourth grade student in Ms. Stingley's class, and she won first place in essay, and I would welcome her up for her recognition. And her mom's a proud fifth grade teacher here, Miss Wilson, back there from Cedarwood. And our fifth grade student, Catherine Schaefer, for honorable mention in the art category, and Miss Erickson, her fifth grade teacher in high cap. And finally, we have a second place winner in our essay contest, Kavi Peru, and our fifth grade students. I'd like to welcome him up as well with Miss Erickson.
Well, I'd like to take an opportunity to just recognize 3 of our schools in our south region of our district whose students were award winners for the Prodigies of Peace essays or artwork. These students were not able to attend this evening, but the 3 schools represented were Forest View Elementary, Heatherwood Middle School, and Jackson High School. 9 students combined from those schools won awards but could not attend this evening. But at this time, I would like to recognize and invite up to the lectern a third grade teacher from Mill Creek Elementary School, Anna Tidwell, and her students up to the lectern to be recognized. 10 students total from Ms. Tidwell's class were recognized and awarded.
10 total.
10 total?
Not just from my class, but in third grade.
Okay, sorry, that's what it says. So anyway, well, I'm going to ask you to hand out these awards for the students. Okay? And not all of them could make it this evening, so I would just like to take an opportunity to recognize each of those students who are here this evening. Would you go ahead and just say your name in the front, please?
My name's Camille.
Okay. Camille is an award winner for first place in art. Congratulations.
Lillian Evans.
Great, Lillian. Lillian was a third place winner in art as well.
Frankie Jackson.
All right, congratulations, Frankie. Frankie was honorable mention in art as well. Okay, congratulations. Thank you.
So while we're transitioning to the next principal, we're just a reminder that we're going to do a big group picture with the school board and all the students in a few minutes right after we finish all the introductions.
And I hear track ended at Evergreen, so Michelle Waddell, I'd like to invite you back up here, please.
Thanks again for having me up here. We'd like to honor Shannon Chang for winning first place for her essay in the competition.
Is that it? That's everybody? Great. Okay. So just one quick note. I think we're going to step outside where we're gonna be heading out there. Before we go, I just want to thank all of the parents, family members, friends, neighbors, whoever helped to bring the students here this evening for this celebration. I want to thank the teachers who came this evening. I want to just say that, you know, this isn't just an opportunity to recognize the fine arts, the performing arts, the literary arts. This is an opportunity to recognize the values of this district and this board, and the values that are represented by Martin Luther King and the holiday that we celebrate in his honor and in honor of all those who've given their lives in support of civil rights in this country. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time and making the investment as we continue to carry that torch forward. We want every youngster in this district to have not only the opportunity to express themselves, but the opportunities that everyone else has who comes into this district. So thank you all very much. We're going to go head out there for a group picture with the board, and this means that the board members get to shake all the students' hands too. Okay. Never mind tunnels with the grandkids. Yeah, it's great. We didn't know where to get off, but it was great.
Are we all back?
We are.
Okay.
We are so ready to go.
All right. All right, we'll move on to section 6.0, audience comments.
We do.
Okay. Is the person here?
Yes.
Okay. The school board sets aside time during each regular board meeting to hear from our constituents. We do this because we value public input and want to hear and understand the perspectives you bring to the table. Dr. Cohn, are there any requests for comments this evening?
Yes, ma'am.
On behalf of the board, I welcome you to this meeting. Our school board meetings are designed to conduct district business in public. We welcome ideas and opinions presented in that same spirit. I will share how this portion of the meeting is conducted. The superintendent will call you to the podium to speak, and you will have 3 minutes for your comments. All comments are recorded and will be made available for future viewing by the board and public. This public comment time is for the board to listen to what you have to say. It's not a time for debate or discussion, and board members will not respond to individual comments made during this time. As board president, I have the responsibility to ensure the meeting and all conversations are orderly, productive, and respectful. And I appreciate your cooperation in helping me carry out that responsibility. Dr. Cohn, who's our speaker?
Yes, this evening we have one request for public comment, and I would like to invite Harold Pyatt to come to the lectern. He would like to speak to you about rental fees for the athletic field. And Harold, the green light will signify the start of your 3 minutes, the yellow, a 30-second warning, the red, the expiration of your time.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Harold Pyatt, and I have the Everett Merchants baseball team. And I started it 45 years ago when I was encouraged by former athletic director and football coach Jim Innes to keep amateur baseball alive in Everett. And I've done so all these years. We operate under a 501(c) nonprofit. We use volunteers for our concessions, PA, and several of our coaches are also volunteer. Our players are locally recruited from Everett, Cascade, Archbishop High School, as well as surrounding communities, Arlington, Marysville, Snohomish, etc. And it's a viable program. It's very, I feel, beneficial to the Everett area, as we do have free kids clinics for the boys and girls from the clubs, various boys and girls clubs from Everett, and that's well attended each year. We I want to spend some time just to address the rental fee that's been proposed for the athletic field over here. Currently, and we've been paying $76 an hour to rent the stadium. For a typical 3-hour game, it's $284 plus $57 for a custodian and $60 for lights. And the proposed rate increase is over doubled from the $76 an hour to $178.11, which is really a very, very significant increase for a nonprofit organization that's trying to provide a community entity for these kids to come back from college. Our guys range from 18 to 21, 22 years old. 95% of them are on college scholarship in various areas in the state. and some out of state, but most of them are all locally recruited to play in Everett down at the stadium. And to go along with that, when I add the umpires to the field rental, it cost us $566 to have one game. And if the rate fee is increased over $101 per hour, that would add over $300 per game, which would bring that up to about $870. And like the Everett High School kids, the support comes from parents, family, friends to come and watch the games. And that's the same with our entity. We charge a minimal $3 a head. We provide concessions. Hot dogs are $2. We keep everything really low to encourage family participation. We are a little bit below the competitive level of the Everett Octosox. We play them an exhibition game every year and have beaten them several times with our college kids. So it's a great opportunity for these kids to come back and to be in the environment and the wonderful stadium that has just been remodeled down there. So it's a thrill for them. I've been doing this, like I said, for 45 years, and I volunteer my services, and I want to keep it going. But if I get priced out of it, I just don't know how we're going to make it. We average around 50, maybe 75 people per game. And that revenue that they provide is what pays a lot of our bills, as well as a season program that we put out. And we sell advertisements to local businesses. And that's how we're supported. That's how we financially support the team. And I hope to continue to do it for a few more years. But it depends on, as in this day and age, it seems like it's always dollars and cents. And I'm hoping it comes down to the value of the program that I want to keep going for a few more years. So with that in mind, I think I'm on the red light. So I want to thank you for letting me address you guys, and hopefully you'll have mercy and compassion on us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Pyatt. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Dr. Cohn, will you please provide an introduction to the consent agenda?
The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items. Examples of this type of item include meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, surplus lists, gifts and grants, and recurring contracts. Sometimes the consent agenda will include items that occur less frequently but are of a routine business nature. This type of frequently occurring consent agenda item is usually reviewed by the board in its Friday report, 1 or more weeks prior to the board meeting when those items are scheduled to appear on the consent agenda. This will give directors time to ask staff questions about those items or to consider a discussion about the policy implications of a particular item. If a consent agenda item is removed by the concurrence of 2 directors, that item is placed in new business and the remaining items are automatically renumbered by the system. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By definition, a consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office received 1 inquiry regarding an expenditure item. Therefore, the consent agenda is presented as published for your approval, and we ask that of you.
A motion to approve the consent agenda as presented is in order.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lassane and seconded by Director Mitchell to approve the consent agenda. Does any director wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it in the new business section? Hearing no requests, we will proceed to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. And moving on to board comment section. So this is our opportunity to share our activities as they relate to our board service. I know we have been all very busy, so we have allocated 15 minutes to this time. So would you like to start, Director Nankar?
Obviously this is about the National School Board. Can you hear me? NSBA conference, and I was grateful for the opportunity to go and attend, because particularly for the overwhelming choices of sessions that they had. Again, I guess overwhelming, but it's probably a good problem to have. And there were times when I felt like I wish I could attend 3 or 4 at the same time. But unfortunately, but then what I realized was there were several times where I sort of leaned towards attending most of the sessions that were on social emotional learning, and as I reflected on it on my way back here, way back home, I realized. While we have the advantage and the benefit through all the hard work that we've done, well, when I say we, I mean you, in terms of the academic achievements in training the minds and the brains of our kids, we do have an opportunity, because of the good stuff that's been done, that we do have an opportunity to train or to educate the hearts of our children. And I thought, in terms of, given the political climate now and the stuff that we hear in the news and so on, that sort of goes hand in hand. We hear about the mad, brilliant scientist, but then at the same time, if we are educating and bringing up the next generation of young leaders and young kids, it is the education of the heart, to be mindful, to be compassionate, and to be thoughtful and think about community and all that. So that, I don't know, that had a lasting impression on me and stuck on my mind for quite a bit. So that was one of the bigger takeaways. And one thing I remembered was, I think it was sometime in February when our kids, about 100, I think I saw that on a press release, about 100 of our kids from Whittier Elementary School did a packed lunches for the homeless here. And I think it was an initiative by one of the 4th grade teachers. And that, for me, is, in a sense, the practice of social emotional learning. And I know that was probably a 1 or 2 off, but then I think if we can continue that, I think would be a job well done. I think that's all I had.
Thank you. Dr. Lissing?
Yes, I just want to harken back on what has happened since the last board meeting. And I look back on my calendar and I noticed that I had the opportunity to attend the Cascade High School Cultural Night before we headed out to NSBA conference. And I must say, I thoroughly enjoyed that. The kids were so genuine and so enthused and so willing to share. And the parents also came out immensely. I hadn't had dinner beforehand, but when I left there, I shouldn't eat breakfast and dinner for the next couple of days. I had so much food. It was wonderful. And the kids that performed for, in a native song or performed a rendition with their sisters and other siblings, that was amazing. That was truly amazing to see how they stole the show. The little sisters stole the show. But one thing I noticed is, if we can continue that, I did not have the opportunity to go to Everett High School Cultural Night, nor did I have the chance to go over to Jackson High School for theirs. But we need to continue that type of event so that the kids can share their culture with their fellow students. And the families can come out and support it, because this was the first one that Cascade had. And I know Principal Wood's first thing she said is, we're not going to stop. This is going to continue on. And I really think that's a good thing. I'd love to see that. I also had the opportunity to attend our version of the Shark Tank, this Eisenhower 7th grade business expo. And I must say, the kids are very creative and engaged. And they really surprised me this year with some of their thoughts and how they came up with how much money they feel they need to set up a business and what type of support and they would need for whatever engagement that they wanted to do. So they were very creative, and I really ran into quite a few of them that could really focus in on enunciating and engaging one another or any adult that came by with their thoughts. And so that was really great. Public speaking is an amazing thing, and sometimes it's very terrifying, but these kids did well. They truly did well. I also had the opportunity to attend NSBA conference, and I too attended several social-emotional sessions, which was very good. I had the opportunity of attending a pre-conference site, a Colonial School District site. It's a very small district. It's a district of, say, 9,800 kids. But they have one high school with a high school size of 2,200 kids. Interesting, right? High school, 9th through 12th. 2 gymnasiums, 2 lunch cafeterias. And each of the cafeterias with that size had like 3 periods, the lunch periods, 3 lunch periods with 2 cafeterias. And when we stopped in to see the size of those cafeterias, it was about the size of Jackson's common area and their cafeteria. So I was impressed, and I was just floored that they had 2 cafeterias going on at the same time, feeding kids lunches at 2,200, because they knew it's a large high school. But one thing that I noticed from them, and I wanted to read something that came back, and this may sound unique, but catch it. They are focusing on the power of we. The power of we. One of their challenges states, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair a broken man." And that was said by Thurgood Marshall. And they developed the power of we. Their focus is on early childhood, leadership and learning, innovation, access and opportunity, community being the students, the staff, and the family. And their focus on the power of we, what we can do. And isn't that amazing? A lot of the same things that a lot of school districts, we are focusing on. So I thought that was very good. There's a lot that came out of this. I got a lot of handouts that I plan on forwarding to certain members of our leadership staff. So please look forward to getting those from me. One session that I went on, Dr. Stewart, was focused on 21st century skills and rubrics assigned to how to measure those. And I will forward that off to you as well, too, so that you can forward it off to other people as well. But the same thing that we went through, the same things. I mean, it looks so identical to the things that we're doing, which told me that we're doing something right. So that's fantastic. And also, I sat in on one session with equal opportunity schools and what they have been able to accomplish in reducing the achievement gap. Amazing. So a lot of things reinforce what we're doing. A lot of things reinforced our goals going forward. And so I think, we have a lot to be very proud of. Hope I didn't take all the 15 minutes.
Not quite. I just wanted to share an observation. We all went to the National School Board Conference, and as you sit on the board, the longer you attend, or the more you attend these conferences, the more you become selective about the learning that you want to do, because you sort of understand the district. And what I find, and especially I found this to be true this time, is the strength of our programs in our districts in particular, and how well we're doing so many different things, where I go to these breakout sessions and I'm like, they need to come to Everett. And it's incredible. It's affirmation of the work that they do, to your point. And then I think also that there is always opportunity to learn, and you can go to conference after conference and breakout after breakout and walk away with a head full of new ideas and approaches and innovation. And it's just a very inspiring, for me, place to go and have that kind of learning, where you get to compare what we're doing with how other people are approaching the same kind of work. And it's just amazing how many different ways there are to approach it. So I really, really appreciate the opportunities to be able to attend conferences, both our state and the national one, which are very different in flavor, but both equally beneficial. And I just wanted to say I appreciate Director Nankar's comments. The word I heard more at this conference than I ever have before was empathy. And I even had to go on Merriam-Webster and look it up, because just so I knew the specific definition. And I do believe that a lot of empathy can go a very long way. So I do appreciate the focus that schools across the nation now are taking more on the human aspects of growing our students. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Mitchell?
Thank you. I just want to thank again for inviting the Everett Theater tonight.
Yeah, that was great.
And maybe that can be a new tradition too, as each of our high schools is rolling out a musical. That we have just have one school. Yeah, because Jackson does their musical in the fall, if Everett does theirs in the spring, and depending on when Cascade does theirs, maybe that's a new opportunity for our new superintendent to consider. I also attended the Eisenhower Business Expo and talked to about 20 wonderful children. And I had a standard script that I did for each of them. Let them tell me about their project, and then ask them, what was your favorite part? Some of it was writing, some of it was art. What was the hardest part? Most of them it was writing, some of them it was art. I agree with the art part. They did have a STEAM theme. I had to explain to one boy, because he said he didn't know where STEAM fell into his project, and I explained to him how most of STEAM fell into his project, and he was quite pleased that he actually had those parts. Then I'd ask each of the kids, are you proud of your work? And to see each of the kids still a little bit taller when I asked that question. And then I handed them each my business card, because Andrea Miles, who coordinates this, had said that the kids are specifically told to watch for the gold name tags. Oh. So I would tell each of the kids, I'm giving you my business card. I'm Tracy Mitchell with the school board, and I want you to tell your teacher that I think you did an exceptional job, and show them this business card. Mm-hmm. And I had one young lady, when I walked up, she goes, I hoped you'd come by and see me. So, I mean, I think it's a great thing that if we are able to go, Pam, you and I both like this event, so it is really fun. Then I just have one comment about NSBA that is something that we've worked with our superintendent recruiting company, that our 34% free and reduced lunch hides our poverty and lack of poverty in this district, the range that we have. And while we are not unique in that range, I did go to a session that was quite interesting and insightful on poverty in education. And they asked everybody to raise their hand about their poverty level. And when I put my hand down, if we're under 50, it doesn't really represent the high poverty in our district. And so that is something that I am focused on, that the new superintendent understand how to work with high poverty as well as how to work with the low poverty. And so it was just sort of interesting. And sorry, my flowering trees. But over spring break, I had a very busy spring break looking at colleges with my daughter. And I'm very thankful to the college counselor at Jackson and a teacher at Jackson that when Becca told her teacher what she wanted to study, she immediately sent her to the college counselor who said, you need to go to see these, look into these 20 schools. And so we made up a spreadsheet and looked at Becca's not a 4.05 kid, so let's take those schools off her list. And but she really specifically looked at little liberal arts schools in Pennsylvania and New York, and some things that I did not know. And so it is for the kids as they're looking at these schools. I don't know if Naviance tells them or the websites do tell them, but 5 of the 7 schools, the SAT and ACT were optional. Which was new to me, and that of those, like 5 of those 7 too, they would talk about the relationship that the kids have. This is great that you're visiting today. Keep in touch. One of the schools said a mother complained because why didn't my child get into your school? They have a 4.0. They meet all your metrics, and they said because we emailed your child 4 times and he never responded, so we don't know if he's actually really wants to come to our school. And I know that's not the rule for every school, that relationship. A big school like the University of Washington probably does not want to hear from every kid that's interested in going to the University of Washington. But what they would say is the college app makes it too easy. So they want to see who's really interested, the early decision kids, as well as just that you're keeping in touch with them. And that even when we were first meeting with Becca's counselor, Ms. Williams at Jackson, she had said, if you want to go to Western, every time Western comes to Jackson, make an appointment with them because they'll remember you as a freshman, as a sophomore, as a junior. And so it is figuring out for our kids which of those schools that relationship pre-admission is important. In which schools it doesn't matter. You are one of the however many thousands of kids apply to the school. And so that was really, really interesting. And I know that every family can't afford to go far. Not every child wants to go to school far away. But even for our local schools, I mean, from Bellingham down to Portland across to the east side, it is, does Whitman want a relationship? Does Lewis and Clark want a relationship? Does UW not care? But figuring out, how best, what are all the different steps kids need to get into the college of their choice? It was new learning for me. So thank you.
Thank you. I also really enjoyed seeing the drama students here today. I know that that's a group that provides a lot of inclusion for kids and just can be really beneficial for kids trying to figure out who they are and what their strengths and weaknesses are. And that was a great group here. I can't wait to go see the actual performance on the stage. Since the last meeting, I went to a Hawthorne saucer, which was delightful. We had a fine dining experience there with tablecloths and cloth napkins and napkin rings and bubbly beverages, but it was absolutely clever. They had menus. I'm looking at one. I took a photo because I thought it was so interesting. We had on the menu was a balanced literacy menu with a 5-course instructional plan, including things such as whole group reading, independent literacy, side orders of one-on-one intervention, and extended day LLI. Anyway, it was, dessert was school-wide. Actually, my picture is blurry. I can't read it. Anyway, it was very well done, and just some very, very good work, excellent work going on at that school. Trip to Philadelphia was great. That truly proved to be the city of brotherly love. I really enjoyed my time there. The conference I thought was improved over the prior year, that the speakers, the general session speakers were quite good and had relevant messages. I tried to just go to a wide variety of sessions. I chose one on how artificial intelligence is going to affect education moving forward, and that was enlightening. Went to one on an alternative high school, which requires that all of their students do an internship, which also, their graduation rate was something like 86% or something. So they're being very successful with that. An inspiring session on engaging your LGBT students and including them. Had lots of good ideas on how to do that. And the last session I went to was a session on superintendent search, but it was really focused on not the searching for the superintendent, but the fact the superintendent is looking at us as a board and things that we need to think about. So I think at our next meeting, when we are dealing with superintendent search, I'll share some of the things I learned in that session. Yes. And if any potential superintendent is out there watching this, we are a great board. Let me just tell you that. Just have a little advertisement here. So we learned a lot. And that's all I have. So I think we will move on to superintendent's report. Dr. Cohn?
All right. Thank you very much. I think we've got a cover slide coming up pretty soon. I'm not sure you can see that very well. These are not cancer-causing windmills, but they are sprouts that are coming out of the ground. And we wanted to put them in there because they are so metaphorically representative of, the springtime and growth and what you see here in the students that you were able to meet and enjoy tonight. I think hopefully a fairly short report this evening. Wanted you to get a quick look at some really fun things that have been happening in the district. Dr. Stewart, I think, used the term celebratory season. I think other people might call it the silly season because of the number of things that are piled on top of each other and the craziness that just seems to occur every single year as you rush right up to commencement and the end of a school year. Nevertheless, we're going to take a quick look at a couple of things that a few of you mentioned, and I wanted to call out as well. I was able to attend the cultural night at Everett High, and I think I reported on that in a previous report. I wanted to show you a couple of pictures of that Cascade High School culture night. And I want to tell you that from my perspective, it was an absolutely smashing success. The cafeteria was totally packed with people. And I have to tell you, the number of people who just walked up to me and introduced themselves and said, thank you for doing this and thank you for making this possible. And do we get to do this again next year? And it was really, really very affirming. And I shared that with the leadership at the high school. And I want to publicly thank them for the work that they did organizing that and pulling so many kids and families into a very first night. I mean, the very first night. So I think next year's is just going to spill out into the into the rest of the school. I'm excited to see that happen. I'll look for photos. The Students of Color Career Conference was held. I believe it was this past week, the week prior to the break. The Students of Color Career Conference addresses gaps in aspiration, access, and engagement that exists for students from historically marginalized communities in our school district. Students are exposed to a college campus setting, and they're connected with professionals from similar backgrounds. This year, 343 students from all of our secondary schools attended the conference. Last year, I think there were about 1,500 students attended. I haven't seen a count from this year's conference, but I'm delighted that the NAACP, the college, and other folks in the community are willing to invest in that opportunity for students who may not have access to colleges and professionals because of the poverty they face. 3 Jackson High School students scored in the top 1.115% in the world for AP research. We wanted to introduce them to you this evening, at least images of them. Sam, Soyun, and Unjun, and we wanted you to know that they're all out of Kevin Kukla's class at Jackson High School. Sam's AP research exam was about the effective minimum wage on employment and the automation interaction effect. Soyun's was on okay, this is not a word I've been able to pronounce no matter how many times I've tried. Entomophagy, is that correct? Any of the science people want to help me? I'm not seeing any support out there. Okay. How consumer disgust and cultural factors relate to negative food attitudes in Western society. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? Anuj was a stressful situation, easing psychological stress experiences by elite junior tennis players. All three research papers can be found linked in the news release that you'll see on our website. Forest View Elementary School's fourth grader, Kalia Park here, with her teacher, Pam Van Horn, won the best of show for her tilted dispenser that she designed because she couldn't stand not getting the last few ounces of her shampoo out of the bottle. She created a mock-up and a working model with her highly capable class, encouraging students to participate in the Washington State Innovation Convention. She created a display board and kept her notes in an innovation notebook. She was one of the three Forest View. Did I say the school correctly before? Did I? Yeah, okay. Right. Her name's Kalia Park. It's Forest View. I want to make sure I got that right? Forest View Elementary School's highly capable students to compete in the State Innovation Convention in Spokane, March 23rd. Her performance earns her an invitation to participate in the National Innovation Convention at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan on May 29 and 30, which I understand she plans to attend. Everett High School students, Lucille Carmona, Fernando Gonzalez, and Jackson High School student, Juliana Mothersbaugh, were recently recognized for winning awards at the Spanish Literary Contest held at the University of Washington. You have in the past recognized students for this particular contest. There were 500 Washington State students from 31 different schools who wrote essays or poems in Spanish with the theme, "It makes me smile, it makes me laugh, it makes me happy." Lucille earned first place. Fernando and Juliana each earned third place. These students will be recognized at an awards ceremony May 18th at the university. Judah Nanto from Everett High School is pictured here. We wanted you to know that earlier this month that students from each of our comprehensive high schools competed against other regional high school students to qualify. Well, that would be students from other high schools in the region to qualify for the state competition held at Central Washington University, April 26 and 27. So either as an ensemble or as a soloist, 37 qualified to compete at the state level. They'll represent our Everett Public Schools at the two-day competition. And 10 soloists and 40 ensembles also qualified for first or second alternates and will also travel to Central Washington. In total, 87 students are planning to attend. That's, I think, a very good showing. You got to hear a little bit of performing arts this evening. You get to spend a little time on some literary arts awards and recognizing students. And when you walk around the first floor here at the Community Resource Center, you will see the 21st Annual Student Art Show. Each year, our Everett Public Schools, in partnership with the foundation, is pleased to display the best work of student artists. And April 9 through 25, the public is invited to the high school art show during our regular business hours, which are Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4:30. The awards reception is April 24 from 6 to 7:30 p.m. here at the Community Resource Center. In addition to student awards, there are two special awards that are announced at the reception. One is the Superintendent's Choice, which is sponsored by the Everett Public Schools Foundation. One piece of art in the show is selected by the superintendent. The foundation purchases it, frames it, and you see the history then hanging in our hallways. The Foundation Scholarship Award is also given to a high school senior for excellence in the visual arts. Last year's Superintendent's Choice Award went to Andrew Culver, who's a student from Cascade High School. I really encourage you before you leave here this evening to take a walk around the hall, the foyer, and the hallways out here in front of the atrium. Much of, I should say, the physical art, if you will, the sculpture is out here on displays that we recovered to set off the student displays. And I will tell you, I don't think I've seen as much art, as much high school student art displayed as you'll see this year when you walk around. I cannot wait to get in there and figure out which one is going to be the superintendent's choice. And as you know, Susie and I always buy several, and I already have my eye on about 6 or 8 pieces so that we can purchase those and donate them and have them framed and hung here. I want you to know that approximately 1,275 high school juniors in our district took the SAT on Wednesday, the 27th of March. This is part of our commitment to equity. This district pays for all of our juniors to take the exam on a school day, and this provides an opportunity for everybody to have access to this exam because you never know which school is going to require it. And hopefully they have an idea of which school they're going to be going to and which will require it, but we want to make sure that they don't miss out. So a couple of quick updates. Tambar Creek Elementary School. Sheetrock in the classrooms and office area is, or the hanging of sheetrock is progressing well, and casework is being installed. The cafeteria and gym area, which is pictured above in this particular display, is busy with interior wall framing insulation and the mechanical rough-in. And windows are being installed throughout the building. Water service to the building is complete, and power is expected to be energized by early May. North Middle School is experiencing exterior siding, the hanging of exterior siding, and brick installation continues. The windows are 75% done. Sheetrock mudding has begun, and painting will soon follow. Permanent power and the gas service are both on, and the new boys' locker room was turned over for school use on Monday. At Woodside, a milestone was reached in the mitigated determination of non-significance, which was issued as part of the entire SEPA review. If you have questions about that process, Mr. Gunn can explain it to you forwards, backwards, top to bottom. The conditional use permit's been submitted to the county. Plans have been submitted for the building permits, and the state electrical review and the constructability report is being reviewed by the design team. So we're very well underway for the Woodside program, and we expect everything to be done on time and under budget at Woodside Elementary School. And I'll look forward to hearing about that in the future. Here's a quick list of school visits. This I think recognizes pretty much the end of the saucer season. Multiple visits at schools are identified by asterisk. I think this last go around I was at Eisenhower 3 times during the last month for high school transition to observe that, for the 7th grade business expo, and for the state of school review. 2 visits to Everett High, 3 visits to Cascade. It was a busy month, so it was a good month, and I wanted you to know some of the highlights of what we've experienced during the past month. So that's the superintendent's report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cohn. Great things happening in our schools. We will move on to strategic progress monitoring, and this afternoon we will be receiving an update in the area of 21st century skills and next steps.
Great, thank you. What an appropriate night to talk about 21st century skills, given the multiple examples of them alive and well in our district, both in the student dramatic representation tonight, as well as the halls, as Dr. Cohn mentioned. It's appropriate and timely topic. So our purpose this evening is to, and thank you for the opportunity, by the way. Our purpose this evening is to briefly review the history of 21st century skills across our system. And we're most importantly going to highlight the strategic progress in the following areas. So we've got Joanne Budewig on our team talking a little bit about how we've arrived at the definitions and rubric language. Georgia Lindquist is going to be discussing the instructional design tools. We've got a special guest in Christine Vo from Madison Elementary talking about improving accessibility, particularly at the elementary school. Darren Larima, principal at Forest View, is going to be discussing whole school approaches. Joanne's back again talking about our reporting data to date across the system. George is going to be talking about relevance and articulation within that instructional design. And then I'll close with a brief summary of next steps. I think it's appropriate in many respects to start with the vision. Certainly you are aware of this vision, and I'm not going to read it, But in many respects, the 21st Century Skills predates the establishment of the strategic plan and the vision statement. They were really the building blocks of it, of what the community said that they wanted their students to be able to do and be. Well-rounded, flexible thinkers, collaborators, advocates. You can also see 21st Century Skills, again, embedded in the bedrock of the college career and life readiness definition that you're familiar with. The attitudes and skills in particular for students to be successful as we help them build their skills so that they can choose their future. Of course, we see 21st Century Skills called out very explicitly in our strategic goals and KPOs here. So we're going to dive right in tonight, and there'll be a part at the end here for questions and discussion. Thank you.
So I was very proud to be part of a group that involved a key shared leadership team with our teachers. We together looked at many models that were being utilized in a lot of school districts and across the country, and from our career and college readiness work. With that, we took those to our administrators, we took them out into the field, and we were able to collaborate and define our work. We changed from the 6 C's to our really enhancing growth mindset as one of the key pieces that we needed to foster within our schools. And so the 21st Century Skills became our mantra from that original 6 C's. We took it into a rubric format that our teachers could get deep into how this progresses. We aligned it with our early learning work in the WA Kids for the state. We aligned from that investment into really 3rd through 12th grade rubrics that built from and carried through threads that were established in that early learning work. And from that, those rubrics out into the classrooms for the teachers to adapt and adjust into their classrooms. And then we integrate it into the progress report. So we give a feedback loop to our families on some of the elements that were integrated into our classroom. In our K-5, that reporting was every student, every 21st century skill. And in our secondary schools, that was in the comment section where we refined and revised what the teachers could tell their students, and we added even more comment fields to allow for more of that reporting. As we did this, it was essential that our teachers help shape that work. And our curriculum and facilitators as well, that they owned it all the way through, and then a crew of directors and facilitators helped craft the rubrics and wordsmith them in between with the feedback of everyone. So there's a large group involved in getting this ready. And so we ended up with our definitions that was produced and shared throughout our schools. Our principals became primary leaders in that work. And this was beginning embedded in our culture just a couple of years ago. This is new where it took shape. Each grade level has a rubric, 3 to 5, but it's actually a progression. So the rubrics stagger as the grade levels go up to get richer and deeper, but we continue to work through what's proficient within our elementary intermediate classes, became more of a basic or a novice in our middle schools, so that the language had continuity among our staff as well. So the 3rd through 12th grade went from novice all the way into really a high school advanced. We utilized our AP rubrics as well as we got into those advanced stages, and our AVID work. So we really tried to bring together different elements and places where these 21st century skills were evident. And that was where we started from, moving into instructional design. So Georgia Lindquist.
Good evening. So across the content areas, progress is ongoing in terms of developing our instructional maps that clarify the 21st century skills that are the focus in each of the content area courses. And an example we're sharing here tonight is a high school English 2 unit framework map. And as you see, with this, we have 2 embedded assessments, 2 performance assessments in this particular unit. And you see that in this map, it clarifies not just the larger 21st century skill, but the specific criteria within that 21st century skill. So, for example, this first one, researching and comparing pre- and post-colonial Igbo culture, under critical thinking, there are 2 criteria there. Whereas with citizenship and communication, there's 1 criterion out of the entire part of the 21st century rubric for citizenship or communication. So this is getting down to the actual criteria themselves and making that very clear for teachers as they're doing their backward planning for their course and for these performance assessments. Work is also underway to ensure that that clarity is in our rubrics for each of those performance assessments, so that our rubrics not only clarify to students the state standards by which they are going to be evaluated, and that they'll evaluate themselves on as well, and that they're learning about, but also the 21st century skills. And once again, you can see that this is put in by the specific criteria. And so students can see how it grows. And because we begin with the end in mind in courses and in performance assessments, students know from the very beginning, as they begin their work, how they will be assessed, because we know for student learning and growth that they can hit any target that's clear and hold still for them. So they're very well aware of where they're going in terms of state standards and 21st century skills for each of these performance assessments. Turn it over to...
Thank you, Ms. Lundquist. Good evening. I'm Christine Vo, and I would really like to thank Dr. Scott and the school board for this opportunity to highlight the wonderful work that Amanda Overly is leading at Madison Elementary. I'm very excited to share how increasing accessibility to 21st century skills is really helping our students and is part of our school culture at Madison, starting with our morning school announcements that incorporate growth mindset mantras and the power of yet. And these work to build grit, resiliency, and positive thinking for our students. We also have student-friendly rubrics written in kid-friendly language that have been created by our reading coach to help our students to really understand what 21st century skills means to them. We are using these rubrics as part of classroom discussions, classroom meetings, and also to help our students to self-reflect. You can see that there is an example right up there on the PowerPoint of a student's self-reflection using the report card language with the 21st century skills. What I have seen in the school, what I've seen in the classroom, is that increasing accessibility to 21st century skills empowers more of our students to become lifelong learners. Thank you.
In collaboration with the LITS team, the curriculum teams are working to integrate the curriculum portal with Canvas as our learning platform. And this is a fantastic opportunity for us to be able to provide resources for teachers to help them in terms of their understanding of and their supports for teaching 21st century skills. In addition, this is going to be an amazing opportunity for us to provide student resources for 21st century skills. Our classrooms are oriented, and all the work that we're doing is around student-centered classrooms. And so with the Canvas platform, students will be able to go out and link directly, click on any one of these 21st century skills, and be able to access documents and apps that will help them with regard to their learning. And whether it is something related to, for example, in communication, an oral presentation rubric, or how to really be focused in terms of the resources that you're using in your presentations, or maybe it's that you're collaborating with others and you need a project management sheet or project management software. We're working to build a library, and over time we're going to have something really powerful. So when students go into their classes, they'll be able to just link into those and have efficacy with regard to their learning. Another thing that we have developed that students will access right there in the portal in Canvas are these views of the same 21st century skills, but in a continuum model, so that they can see over time by specific criteria how the knowledge and skills grow. And they can use this as a reflective a way to reflect on their current strengths and then to set goals for where they want to go next. And these are really quite powerful because they reflect the whole idea of a growth mindset. And it's right there, and it's a way for them to build and grow as learners and as 21st century students and global citizens. And I'm turning it over to Darren.
Thank you, Georgia. So the Forest View staff was really excited to get the 21st Century Skills rubrics 2 years ago. The Forest View has placed a high value on the 21st Century Skills and added that term to the school's mission statement several years ago. So getting the rubrics was sort of getting something to really sink their teeth into. And the work really started with reviewing the rubrics to look for the important look-fors and other notes that we needed to know to evaluate students appropriately on the new progress report. This past December, we started the work of small groups to develop student-friendly language. We wanted to develop student-friendly language for common understanding and simple definitions for students. So at Forest View, when we say something like growth mindset, we all know that we learn new things through making mistakes. And our teachers are incorporating the 21st century skills into their lessons every day. For example, in one of our fifth grade classrooms, Mr. Johnson's method for developing growth mindset in students is they get a chance to reflect on opportunities to, or when they've had to persevere through challenges, and they use a bead system to mark when they've showed tenacity, perseverance, and resiliency. And so they get to develop their self-regulation and reflection even as they get to celebrate grit that they show in the classroom. We have many teachers who are much more comfortable with learning the lessons in our REACH curriculum, and they're developing more integrated units. So in Mrs. Hansen and Mrs. Goldman's classroom, they created an integrated math and reading project where students used critical thinking and collaboration, creativity and communication skills to create a road trip plan that they developed a budget and a highlighted route with sites along the way. And throughout it, they referenced the rubrics and the skills that they were using in that project. Forest View Professional Development this year is placing an emphasis on one of John Hattie's visible learning strategies, teacher clarity. For every lesson, we're identifying clear learning targets and the success criteria. The success criteria is the checklist or the rubric for each target that shows learning. It's what teachers look for as evidence of student learning. And so for us, the 21st Century Skills rubrics are the success criteria for each skill. So a large part of our integration, again, is understanding the rubrics and creating that student-friendly language that we can teach students, so that students know that what a critical thinker is, even as they are learning how to be a critical thinker. Every morning at our school, during morning announcements, our students read our morning announcements. We get to recognize students that teachers have selected who have shown a 21st century skill, and we call them our Falcon leaders. And we end our morning announcements with this question for our students: how can you be a Falcon leader today? And we're trying to tie leadership into our 21st century skills. Finally, every month at Forest View, we recognize students during our PBIS assemblies who've shown growth in a 21st century skill. We use simple language and a lot of visuals to teach all of the 21st century skills, and teachers follow up with instruction throughout the month on that month's featured skill. We want students to understand, again, we want them to understand and know the success criteria for the skill, how they can show communication, collaboration. Because we have common, clear language and the success criteria, the feedback we can give to students is really specific and meaningful. We don't tell our students they're poor communicators. We use we use the rubric language and common language to give more specific feedback, like, you're really good at sharing your ideas. What kind of questions could you ask your partner to learn about her ideas? We want teacher feedback and the progress report feedback to make sense to our students and helpful for them for goal setting. While some parents are able to attend our assemblies, and we actually have a lot of parents who attend our PBIS assemblies, and they sit through the lessons on our 21st century skills, we share 21st century skills information with all our parents through our monthly parent newsletter, and we share how we use the rubrics, the importance of knowing the skills, and how we recognize our students at Forest View. And we know when students see the report cards, they see the 21st century skills on there and the feedback from the teacher with the success criteria noted below each skill, and an evaluation of their current level of proficiency with each skill. And we want these to be goal-setting moments for our students and ask themselves, if I'm not at consistently, how do I get to consistently? I think it's Joanne Budewig.
So as a reminder, how we incorporated these into our progress report was in that frequency notation. And it's really exciting to hear it's really in the instruction, because the power of these is in the coaching that we do for our students. So our K2, the language follows our WA kids. But it aligns with our 21st century skills. And then the language within the grades 3 through 5 is from our rubrics. And these are the criteria that are specified in the growth rubrics that we've built. As we look at the ways in which they're rarely, sometimes we group these because this chart would be crazy if you tried to do each 4. But over time, what we're seeing is we're actually seeing a growth in rarely and sometimes, which is actually good in a second year. In the first year, people are very nervous to rate things in growth mindset. So we actually generally in a second year should see them starting to be scores where that grows a little bit, so that they're coaching the students and giving them feedback that would align and move them forward. And so we look at that as kind of an expected second year, because first year out, everyone's like, I don't want to mark anyone down because I'm still learning it. So as we look at our secondary reports, we've created an 800 series that's consistent at all of our middle and high schools. And we have a series of comments in which we're allowing our teachers to add. They have their school comments as well as these. But we're starting to see utilization as we look at first semester. If you compared blue to green, those are first semesters each year. So we're starting to see growth in certain areas. Communication is raising, critical thinking, growth mindset, but it also gives us a reflection and says, okay, creativity didn't get a lot of comments. What's happening within our schools? So we're looking at our first 3 semesters with the comments available, and this is how we're seeing them being used and using that as a reflection point. We are also looking at this through the lens of our integrated technology plan. We asked our Technology Advisory Council, so what is citizenship in the digital world? What is communication in the digital world? So we're taking the 21st century skills pretty powerfully, and we do this with all of our Jeff UTech training in that. What do these skills look like when you add the dimension of digital? And so that's a big part and integrated into our plan as we move forward. I'm going to let Dr. Scott wrap up.
So what are our next steps associated with our program development? We continue to refine the rubrics and progressions to improve accessibility. So you heard a lot about kid-friendly language. You heard evidence in the saucers of moving 21st century skills from the abstract to the concrete. We also want to ensure that 21st century skills and text standards are embedded in our instructional map. So you heard Georgia talk about that. Particularly sort of a land of opportunity is the development within Canvas and building out those resources for students and teachers to access. We'll continue to support local site-based professional development that focus on explicitly teaching and communicating the expectations around 21st century skills, observing those skills in authentic context, supporting better ways to provide feedback for students so that they can self-reflect and celebrate their own growth, strengthen whole school approaches like we heard from Christine and from Darren, and there are many other school examples that we could have chosen from, and then continue to monitor that growth as a system over time. Of course, we're going to continue to adopt instructional materials and leverage technology that support students' demonstration of those 21st century skills. In fact, that's one of the filters for every one of our adoptions across the content area, that 21st century skills are evident and easily pulled out to be exercised by students and teachers. So we invite your questions.
Thank you. Directors, questions or comments? Director Lassane?
Yes, I do want to say thank you very much for the presentation. I really enjoyed hearing from how we have come a long way. When we first started talking about 21st century skills, individuals thought it was just something that's going to be layered on top of everything that we're doing. And the focus was not to have something that was in addition to what we were doing. This is an integrated part of what we need to do to help our kids be successful in the 21st century and the 22nd century. But we've come a long way, and I'm very happy to say that, I like the fact that we're using such words in our rubrics as I can, I use, I create, I choose, and I improve. And I think that's really great. As the scale goes up, I improve. And we see 21st century skills in, as I mentioned, in everything that we do, in PBIS, in technology, ELA, and all the instructional maps. And we're coming a long way with that, and I really appreciate the effort that you guys have done. Good work. I look forward to seeing the next step and to see those rubrics continue to grow, because it isn't just an added on exercise on top of the Common Core and the standards that we do. It's an integrated approach to what kids need. And I'm glad we have integrated it in things we did. In PBIS, how can you, oh my gosh, that's really cool. We've integrated in it, so that's great. Thank you.
Other directors?
I have a question. Hi, thanks for good presentation. It's interesting. I'm looking through, and I guess I would love a little bit more information. I'm looking on slide 21. At the elementary level, when we measure these skills and we have the progress reporting like you show on slide 19, is that what parents see when it goes home? Because there's so much more description versus, these one-liners, because you want to keep them short, and there's only so much you can put on a report card for the secondary level. And I guess I'm kind of curious about the feedback from parents, because as a parent, first of all, only about a third of the teachers make any kind of comment. And then when they do, it's just so general, good student, shows, I'm trying to delve in and ask a more appropriate question than say that it's not meaningful, but I guess that is my question. Is it meaningful to parents and students? And are the comments when parents enter or teachers enter them, especially in the 800 series, how often do they use those? And they have, 125, 130 students? And then I'm looking, and this is just the 800 series, so I'm assuming there's all the other comments. And I'm just struggling to find the connection of how what we're reporting out is meaningful and impactful to students and parents.
Yeah, I think.
And teachers, actually.
Right. You bring up a set of ideas that I'm not sure we've explored fully, and we can. surveying parents as to what they'd like to see on, particularly around, you're focusing on the secondary comment section and how meaningful is that, or to what extent is it formative when you sit down with your student to talk about his or her report card, and how is that manifest in the class, and in what projects, in what projects was that manifest? It doesn't show up well per se, it doesn't tell the whole story on a report card that's already filled with information, but so it's something for us to explore.
Yeah, I could see how the work being done to help teachers understand how to integrate these skills into the different areas where, the different lesson plans and stuff is critical and really important, but the measurement is, challenging. I mean, I'm sure it is, to be able to get at, one-on-one when you're talking with a student, you can absolutely identify them individually, say you went from here to here, but, on a scale, it's very difficult to capture that information. Yeah. So, okay, just kind of curious.
Yeah, thanks for that thought. Yeah.
And I just have a comment. It's a very timely presentation, so I didn't mention it during the opening comments, but it was mentioned we had some great keynote speakers, and one of them was Johnny C. Taylor, who is the president of SHRM, the Society of HR Management. So it was, at first I'm like, why is an HR guy here talking to public school leaders? Because we're not college school leaders or technical college school leaders, we're public school leaders. But he was really, really engaging, talking about what employment outlook looks like, what the skills have changed through the centuries. And I took a couple pictures of his slides. His last few slides were hard skills of what he called technical. So writing, critical thinking, which is one of our 21st century skills, technology, and then public speaking, which is communication. Then he had soft skills of decision making, which is one of our, the critical reasoning again, customer focus, teamwork, which is collaboration, dependability and reliability, which is, I think, citizenship, and then adaptability, trainability. So that is, it's a growth mindset. It's those sorts of things. And his charge really was to the public schools, please send your kids forth with these things. That's really what I heard. We already have so many of them integrated. How do we get them hardwired? How do we get parents to understand it, to Caroline's point? And something I heard at these universities we visited, transitioning kids from high school writing to college writing. That was a term I had never heard when I went to college. But he really did focus too, these kids need to come out of school writing. We hear that a lot in the elementary school saucers. How much is writing sort of going through school? Because I think he knew he was talking to public school. These are kids that are direct to career, direct to job, as well as higher level ed. And I just felt it really interesting in the fact it was just timely for this presentation. So thank you.
He did give a good presentation, I thought. Actually, Director Mason addressed the exact question I had. Also, though, I just was reminded in the saucers, especially at elementary school, this year there was so much evidence of growth mindset and just holding the students, responsible for their learning and helping them sort of self-reflect and self-direct and all that. I think that for me that's a skill that really kind of stands out above the others that can help students be successful. I also wondered, the kid-friendly rubrics, are those specific to each school, or are they, we have one kid-friendly language for K through 5, or?
We're trying to capitalize on sort of the grassroots approach that many of these schools had sort of taken it upon themselves in I wouldn't say necessarily in parallel to district level work, but to try to work with and join work in progress that's already really good, as evidenced by the students using it effectively. So Christine showed that example at Madison. I think Madison was one of the first saucers of the season, if not the first, where we saw that, and we saw that in a couple of other areas. So we see it as our job to take some of those best examples to scale and continue that refinement process. Because if these aren't accessible, and we heard that loud and clear in the last 18 months leading up to the saucer season, if these aren't accessible, then they're going to be shelved. So we're working on that.
And it was a question I had when I just went to the district website and searched 21st century skills, and then it took me to the part of the website that describes them. But I felt like they were a little bit, the kid-friendly language would have been more helpful to me if I were a parent looking at that website. So I think moving in that direction will be really helpful.
Okay, thank you.
To everyone.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you for a very great presentation.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
And next on the agenda is a break. Well, we will resume at 6:45.
Outside's good.
We're trying to find choose both of us. There's two Miguels and kind of looking for names of a Miguel.
Grace business.
Call the meeting back to order. And move on to section 11.0, second quarter financial update.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ruth.
I'll summarize for you today our second quarter actual operations compared with our 18-19 operating budget. And we have 5 funds. I'll spend a little bit more time on general fund. It's very similar to what you saw in the first quarter, so we'll go fairly quickly. And if you have questions at the end, I'm happy to answer them. General fund, as you know, much of our revenues are driven by student enrollment. We are below budget FTE-wise. We're very close head count, but due to some underestimating the impact of our additional hours, that the minutes that the students have to spend in class for a 1.0 FTE, we ended up having more part-time students than we anticipated. We knew about the new rule, just didn't anticipate quite the impact that it had. And so our annual average is going to be between 45 and 50 under. I'm optimistic that'll be closer to the 45. Those that don't take a full course load at the secondary level.
We have quite a few part-time students.
We do. Those that go to Running Start, Skills Center, and so on.
I understand now. Yes. Okay. I consider those full-time students, but I didn't know that they were considered part-time.
Not on our books.
Yeah. They're part-time for
Part-time
us.
for
they
us.
May be more than full-time as students, but they're only part-time for us.
Part-time for us.
You're welcome. Projected revenues and transfers are expected to be about $316 million. We ended up having an influx of transportation revenues in February. They do 3 trimesters, I guess you would say, of their look at the bus routes, and they also gave us an influx of money for transportation for the salaries that we got in other programs that ended up being a surprise to a lot of districts. We didn't realize that we were going to get that influx of salary dollars into the transportation fund as well. Those projections, the projections that you're seeing today of revenues includes about 1.2 million of that because technically if we don't spend the money that they gave us the influx of money for out of the transportation department, they could recover it. We are hoping that the OSPI will be able to do a rule change to allow us to have a 1-year carry forward, not us, but the state, because it is throughout the state that there could be this issue when we are limited on for your transportation revenues by your expenditures, because Everett is actually fully funded now, and so we're limited by our prior year expenditures, and because they gave us that influx of revenue, we aren't spending up to that level. And so if we can have 1 more year to accommodate that and make some adjustments, salaries we haven't had a chance to address, and things like that. So we're hoping that OSPI will be able to do that rule change. Special education enrollment is also up. Expenditures are within budget though, so that's good news for revenues compared to expenditures and fund balance. Additional safety net revenues are possible. Those have not quite been included yet. We learned about it fairly late in the quarter, and we don't know what that will end up being until the June timeframe when the safety net committee does their analysis. Projected expenditures are over $311.6 million, well within our board authorized appropriations. Salaries and benefits are lower than budget due to CERT experience. Normally, that isn't uncommon. In the last few years, our CERT expenditures for salaries and benefits have been lower than budget, but in prior years, because we had the salary allocation, the salary allocation model, the state-defined model for salaries, they also lowered our revenues. So if you had lower expenditures for CERT salaries, they gave you less apportionment dollars. Well, that isn't the case anymore because McCleary threw out the state allocation model, and so now we are able to collect those revenues even though our expenditures have decreased. But then the opposite would be true as well. If CERT experience went up, but we hadn't anticipated it, then our revenues would stay the same and we would be going the other way. Categorical expenditures are also tracking lower. With those, though, it sits in fund balance and it has to be restricted. So even if, for instance, LAP doesn't spend all of their money, it needs to stay in a restricted account for fund balance. Projected ending fund balance is expected to be about $29.9 million, which would include those restrictions that I discussed regarding categorical. That's about 9.6% of total expenditures. And as I mentioned, transportation revenues are up, special ed revenues as well. In capital projects fund, these revenues do not include bond proceeds. The major revenues are from the capital levy proceeds in October and April. And then we also, as you know, get some rent, some interest, and some impact fees. Board authorized appropriations for capital projects is about $100 million. You'll see immediately after this our request to increase the authorized appropriations for capital projects to about $115 million. Our February ending fund balance in capital projects was almost $58 million. That includes $2 million that we transferred to general fund in November. And this the fund balance trend there does reflect the bonds. And we do expect an additional bond sale in April, end of April, I believe. Debt service fund, our balance is about $5.6 million. This time of year, it is at a low point due to having paid principal and interest bond payments in December. Associated Student Body ASB Fund, currently sitting at about $1.6 million as of February. The trends there are very similar to prior years. It is trending lower than prior years because of especially the high school's efforts to spend down their reserves. This is a snapshot of our second quarter fund balance compared to last year's second quarter fund balance. As you can see, Cascade is a bit under this time last year, Everett's a bit over, and then Jackson High School is quite a bit under. And I do know that they have really made a concerted effort to bring that fund balance down. And this isn't very much different than where it sat first quarter. They were about $230,000 less first quarter compared to the prior first quarter. So that just indicates to me that they had less revenue coming in right at the beginning of the year. They had some expenditures for dances and items that happened in the fall that they didn't charge the students for quite as much. They also purchased some t-shirts for the entire student body and didn't charge the students at all for that. So, Transportation Vehicle Fund, ending fund balance is about $125,000. We expect to receive state depreciation as normal in August of an additional $113,000. And we're in line to purchase two buses this year. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you very much. Director's questions?
I had a question. Hi. I'm looking at slide 6, and it talks about additional safety net revenues possible. We've already collected a significant amount, or how does the timing work on that, I guess?
The timing is very odd with safety net. We have to spend the money first, and so the students that are high cost, then we collect all of the information for them, and we anticipate how much we'll spend on them for the entire year. And if they're over a certain threshold, then we can apply for safety net reimbursement. But they don't tell us that we get the safety net reimbursement until the year is almost completely over. June, we'll find out that, yes, we'll get reimbursed for them. They don't actually reimburse us until August.
What was our reimbursement last year?
Last year, it was about 1.6 million. We've applied for almost 3 million this year, so quite a significant increase this year.
That's a big deal. It's a lot of money.
Yes.
And then I have one other question. It was regarding the fund balance. Is it still the case? I recall that each percentage is about $1 million on the fund balance.
It's actually over 3 million because we're a $300 million general fund budget.
Okay, so the difference between 6% and 9.6, I can do my math. Thank you. With my calculator on my phone.
I think we're all hostage to our calculators.
Yeah.
Siri, want to do that for you?
What's that?
Siri,
No, I got
for
it. But that's a good chunk of money. That difference between our target fund balance and where we are.
It is.
Director Nongard, did you have a question?
I don't know, maybe this is sort of an ignorant question, so I'll just try anyways. You had mentioned on the same slide 6, I don't know if it's the 1.2 million, but you mentioned something about if you don't use it, you sort of lose it, and then you hope
The state could recover.
State could recover it, and then we're looking at the OSPI to
Make a rule change.
Make a rule change. Is that a legislative ask, or is it not?
They hope that it's within their ability to just do a rule change, and they would not need to go to the legislature to do that.
Okay, all right.
But it hasn't been finalized yet, so it's just their hope that they can do it as a rule change and not have to go to the legislature for it.
That can only be used for transportation.
Correct, yes.
Well, as always, you answered every question that entered my mind when I looked through the PowerPoint.
I try to anticipate.
You do it very well. However, I still am not quite clear on the increase in transportation revenues because you said it was related to salaries?
Yes, that's why it was a little bit of a surprise to us. Normally it's a function of a model that they have called the STARS allocation model. And because our expenditures, we're so good about keeping our expenditures down, we're limited to our prior year expenditures plus an inflator that they give us because they know that costs go up the next year. And in the past, we've gotten, maybe 2%, something like that. But it was a significant amount this year, and it was a surprise to districts that they would have given that much. And it was due to the fact that they had given salary dollars to other programs on our general apportionment. And so they flowed some of that through also to transportation, which was unexpected.
So if the OSPI rule was not able to be changed, do we have to just pay back that money, or do they?
Technically, yes.
Oh, yeah.
It would be recovered by the state, yes.
Really?
They deduct it from future apportionment.
Yes, they do recoveries in January following the fiscal year so that they can look at the whole year after it's done, look at your F-196 annual report, and then they take it back in January the following year.
So they let you keep the money,
Keep
taste
it,
the
but
money,
yeah.
enjoy the money, and then they take it back.
So at what point,
Like
we will know that before
regionalization.
year end? Do you think?
We would know that before year end, and we would do an entry in the books to basically remove the revenue so that it isn't sitting in our fund balance for 4 months.
Jeff is working with both the contractor and our associations, based on the last briefing, in order to make good use of the dollars and not have to pay them back. And that kind of conversation should be a closed session conversation.
But they have to be used for transportation, correct?
Yes, this is one of those areas where if you don't spend it on that, you don't get it. Other districts, the dollars are generated by the salaries and the depreciation schedules and all that sort of thing because they buy the buses and they, they use them up and et cetera, et cetera. So there are a few of us who have this other contracted structure, and they have to deal with us a little bit differently.
Okay. With that, I think we're finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's hard to believe we're halfway through the year already.
I know.
Yeah. And that was as of February, and it's already April. Yeah.
Going into the fourth quarter.
Before you
I
know
know,
it,
but
I'll
this
be
was
here
like-
talking about third
Yeah.
quarter.
I know.
It's fourth quarter.
I know, it was halfway through the year 2 months ago, yeah, practically. Well, 1 month ago at least. Okay. Next on our agenda is unfinished business, adoption of increase of appropriation in capital projects fund for fiscal year 18-19.
Thank you. For our audience's awareness, the Capital Projects Fund is our major building fund, you would say, and it includes not only small projects, but a number of major public works projects. The facilities and planning team on an annual basis, or actually concurrently quarterly basis, develops a multi-year expenditure plan. And most of these larger projects extend over 3 years, including planning, architects, design, all the way through construction and occupancy. So each year that department has to take a snapshot of this overall plan and decide what will be spent in a given year. At times there's a lot of unknowns assigned with when the expenditures will actually occur. And at times there's unforeseen significant events such as a property purchase that occurred back in 2015. So in those instances, we do come to the board and ask for an increase of appropriation, also called a budget extension. As I mentioned, in 2012 and in 2015, we did similar budget extensions. Tonight, Resolution 1195 is proposed to increase the budget, as Ruth had mentioned, by a little over 15 million, 15.1 million. And in this case, unlike in prior ones, the resolution identifies that there are there are only two reasons for this, and they're really related to the major public works projects at North Middle School and Tambar Creek. So that appropriation increase before you would increase it from 422,147 to 115,531,447. It's important, as we mentioned at the first reading before spring break, that this is solely due to the timing of these two major projects, and as both projects are expected to be within budget in terms of cost and also on time for opening. So this is not due to any additional cost or cost overruns, and we ask for your approval of this resolution tonight.
Thank you. Directors have any questions? If no questions, the chair will entertain a motion to approve Resolution 1195, adoption of increase of appropriation in capital projects fund for fiscal year 2018-19.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Director Lassane and seconded by Director Mitchell. To approve the motion is, so we have a motion and second to approve the adoption of increase of appropriation and capital projects fund for fiscal year 2018-19. In accordance with RCW 28A.505.170, the superintendent has caused notice of a public hearing on the increase of appropriation to be published in a newspaper of general circulation on March 26th and April 2nd, 2019, and a public hearing on the proposed resolution is hereby opened. Public comments are invited on the budget adoption. Are there any requests to provide public comment on the increase of appropriation in capital projects fund?
There are no requests.
There being no comments, the public hearing on Resolution 1195, adoption of increase of appropriation in capital projects fund for fiscal year 2018-19 is hereby closed. Were there any further board comments on the motion? There being no further discussion on the motion, we will proceed to the vote. All in favor in the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Any abstentions? The motion to approve Resolution 1195, adoption of increase of appropriation in capital projects fund for fiscal year 2018-19 is carried. Go forth and spin, right? Okay, we'll move on to Section 13, new business, approval of facility user fees for Memorial Stadium synthetic turf fields. Mr. Gunn?
Yes, thank you very much. So tonight we are asking for you to consider approving the facility user fees for Memorial Stadium synthetic turf fields. The objective is for you to actually approve the fee schedule for the two synthetic turf fields, the baseball field and the football field. We'll give you some background on over the last 15 or so years, how we developed the user fees to begin with. Just a quick primer on that. Review the methodology that we use to determine what the fees should be for these two facilities, and then give you an opportunity for discussion and comments and some questions, and then ask for your approval. So in 2002, the school board approved for the first time a user fee schedule. It was the result of about 3 or 4 years of process that we went through with a committee of about 10 people from all over the district that we selected to help put together a recommendation, and it was based on a number of reasons. Basically, we're trying to come up with a way to prioritize our use of our facilities, as well as potentially generate some revenues to help the district be able to maintain those facilities in a good condition for the community to use them. So this committee went through quite a process. We brought it to the school board, and ultimately they approved it. This was about 2 years after their board originally turned it down. So I'm just saying that, good things take time to develop. So here we are, about 15 or actually 17 years later. And the way that this fee schedule was put together and recommended and then approved by the board is that there are reduced rates for groups that are like us. So the more like the Everett Public Schools they are, the lower the rates. And the less like us they are, the higher the rates. So the lowest rates are for school district groups, the PTAs, the boosters, or our own groups. And then the next step on the scale are nonprofit, youth-oriented in-district groups. The rationale for in-district is that those groups already, through a variety of ways, pay taxes that support the local schools. So the in-district, nonprofit, youth-oriented groups get the lowest rates. The highest fees then would be for those opposite groups, the out-of-district adult-oriented for-profit groups. They are charged market rates for the facilities. In the fee schedule 6115S, there are 3 fee schedules, 3A, 3B, and 3C, and those are what the board sees every year. Originally, the previous boards were approving those every year, but we built in a CPI increase. So the rates in the fee schedules are increased automatically, and the only time the board really needs to actually officially approve those fee schedules now is if there's a change made that is not made per the CPI change. Does that make sense? Okay, so fee schedule 3A, by the way, are the fees that apply to the schools, the libraries, the classrooms, almost all of the athletic fields in the district. Almost all the facilities are in schedule 3A. 3B is for the Everett High School Civic Auditorium, and then 3C is for the fields at Everett Memorial Stadium. That is the current arrangement for those schedules. So in 2017, we negotiated an agreement with the Aqua Sox, and quickly after that, we negotiated amendment number 1 with the Aqua Sox. And what amendment number 1 is, it created a way for the school district and the Snohomish County and the Aqua Sox to put our monies together and to do the improvements that resulted in the synthetic turf field and all of the nice improvements that happened out there recently, including, as you're aware, I'm sure, the Aqua Sox got the right to sell the naming rights for the field. And in return, we get 25% of that. The Aqua Sox are paying the school district $300,000 a year. I'm sorry, $300,000 over 10 years. So it's $30,000 a year for 10 years. And a number of other things went into this amendment. The Aqua Sox requested, and we built it into the amendment, and ultimately you approved it, and the Aqua Sox signed it, a provision that requires the school district, and the language is right there, it's to reasonably develop and implement a pricing structure to charge other users of the facility, the baseball field, rates that would more appropriately pay for the anticipated costs to maintain and repair the facility. Basically, it says more than that there. It says such proceeds we have 3 years to implement them, so it doesn't happen all at once. We'll give the users some time to get accustomed to the extra higher costs. And then the monies that we get, anything over the cost to maintain and manage and schedule the facilities goes into the capital reserve fund for the baseball field. We can use it. We have to use that to maintain and repair that facility over time. So that was all put in place in 2017. We've been working on this for a couple years now, and the way that the methodology that we used, and it's very consistent with what we did back in 2002 with the original fee schedule, is we evaluated the costs at the facility for the last 2 years for maintenance, custodial, security, utilities, scheduling and coordination. We estimated the long-term replacement costs of the facility systems, estimated annual hours of use. We researched what other owners of other similar facilities are charging for their facilities, both local school districts as well as other owners of minor league baseball team facilities. And then we calculated fees for the various types of users, and then we met with the the merchants and Harold Pyatt, and also Everett Community College. We talked with the Aqua Sox. Robert Polk and I have had a number of discussions and gone over this, and we brought it to the cabinet. So basically, that's the methodology that we used. And what we're proposing now, and I'll go over these in quite a a bit of detail, the actual fees themselves, just to walk you through it. But we're already a year into this 3-year phase-in schedule. So we're proposing fees be implemented for the second and third years and not at all try to go back in time to correct to charge fees for previous use. So what we decided to do, and we've made a number of adjustments based on the conversations with user groups and Robert Polk, we're proposing that the fees would be, for the second year of implementation, would be 1/3 of the total increase between the current fee and the ultimate fee. And then the third year of implementation would be the entire amount. So instead of going a third, we're going 1/3 and then 3/3. It'll become more clear as I show you the fee schedule itself. Okay, so the schedule, the recommendation is that that Schedule 3C on page 15 be replaced in its entirety by the fee schedule that we have attached, which have the new fees for the 2 synthetic turf fields at Memorial Stadium. There would be one page that would be inserted for 2018-19 and then another one inserted for 19 and 20. The reason that we did for 2 years was, again, because there are 2 more years in the 3-year phase-in. Normally, we would only have you approve the first change in the fee, and then from then on, it would be changed by the CPI. But since this is going to be phased in over 2 more years, we wanted to get that approved by you. So the way the fee structure is set up, remember I talked about the more like us a group is, the lower the rates. So those would be, groups 1 and 2 would be those most like us, either our own groups, our own users, or PTAs or boosters or something like that. We would not charge any fee for those users to use the facility. Group, and what's listed as Group 3, those would be direct costs. Those would be more like the in-district youth-oriented nonprofit groups. Group 4 would be those that are not quite the adult-oriented for-profit out-of-district, but they are not as well. They're not the in-district youth-oriented nonprofit. They're kind of in between. So we would charge direct cost plus long-term replacement costs for the Group 4, and then Group 5 would be market rate. So I'll make it real simple. Right now, Group 3 for the baseball field would be the baseball, the users, there's only one user that would, current user that would qualify for a Group 3 rate, and that is called Laces Baseball Academy. They are youth-oriented, in-district, nonprofit. They don't use it very much, but they are the only Group 3 user we have of the baseball field. The Everett Community College and the Merchants fall into Group 4, so they would be paying direct costs plus long-term replacement costs. And Robert Polk has informed me there are no current users in the Group 5 for the baseball field. So if there were, then they would be the for-profit out-of-district adult-oriented groups. Okay, so this is Schedule 3C. This is the current fee schedule, and what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to explain that the current fee schedule includes, well, for Schedule 3C, it includes all of the fields at the stadium, and it also includes Lincoln Field. And the history on that, why it's that way, is kind of a long story, but I'm just going to say that our plan is to have 3C, once you approve this, it will only apply to the baseball field and the football field at Memorial Stadium. The synthetic turf field at Lincoln Field will fall under Schedule 3C, which is already in existence, and it's already covering all of the other fields throughout the district. One of the reasons that Lincoln Field used to be under Schedule 3C is it was the only synthetic turf field in the district, and now there are others in the district at Jackson High and Cascade, which are already under Schedule 3A. So part of our proposal is that Lincoln Field be moved from Schedule 3C to 3A. There's also a grass field at Memorial Stadium. It was not clear how to charge for that under the Schedule 3C. If you look at the language there, it doesn't clearly show that there's a grass field in that stadium complex that these fees arguably should be applied to. So we're making it clear we're moving the grass practice field from the stadium to Schedule 3A as well, to be placed among the other grass athletic fields in the district in terms of rental rates. So Schedule 3C, when we're done, will only apply to the baseball field and the football field at the stadium. Okay, with that in mind, I wanted to first make the statement that I'm going to compare the proposed fees over the next 2 years with the current fees. And the first thing I'm going to say is that the change in the fees for Lincoln Field, by moving Lincoln Field from this fee schedule to Schedule 3A, the new fees are equal to or lower than the current fees. So if someone wants to complain about Lincoln Field, the rates changing, they're actually getting lower or staying the same. They're not getting any higher with this change. Okay, the same applies to the football field. So with the proposed fee schedule, the change to that from the current fee schedule for the football field users is the new fees are equal to or lower than the current fees in all cases. I could go through those, and I will if you want, in more detail. But so with regard to Lincoln Field and the football field, the rates are equal to or lower in the proposed fee schedule. The grass field, the rates are the same. We would assume, because there are no grass field rates on here, so we were assuming when that field was used at the stadium, it was being charged the normal grass field rate. Which leads us to the baseball field user fees in the proposed fee schedule. And I'll say that the first year the second and third years of the increases, some of the rates will change, will get higher, and some will get lower for the baseball field. So it's kind of a mixed bag. And it's easiest just to kind of walk you through it. If you notice that right here, for user groups 1 and 2, there's no fee, or there's, for the competition events that are after hours, after regular hours, there's a charge for stadium and for the stadium. Under the new fee schedule for the baseball field, there are no fees for both of those groups, 1 and 2. So the first difference is that for group 2 users, which again are those nonprofit youth-oriented groups or the interlocal agreement groups, the PTA and booster groups, there will be no charge for those groups as long as they have an agreement with this district, because what we say in that in the fee schedule 3C is that it says per agreement. The Group 3 rates, and remember, the only Group 3 user that we have right now is Lace's Baseball Academy, and I believe it's a youth-oriented baseball academy that just has only a few times during the year when they use it.
It's a select youth baseball team.
Okay, all right, thank you. So for 2018-19, the rate that we're proposing is $43.17 for the Group 3. So you can look at the current rate right now is $36.75 for stadium. If you're in the competition events after hours, is $90.50. And if you're in the practice time, you're $36.75. So again, the proposed fee that we're proposing for the first year is $43.17. It's a decrease in 2 of the columns, actually it's an increase in 2 of the columns and a decrease in one of them.
$43 across across all categories.
Correct. Because we're collapsing, in the new fee schedule, we're collapsing all the categories into one column. Yeah. The second year of the change for Group 3 users, it'll go up to $56. And that's the 100% of the, it's the third year increase up to 100% of the difference, if that made sense. So by the third year, which is the third year since the amendment was approved by both parties, the change will be $56 even as compared to $90 or $36. So for Laces Baseball Academy, it will be an increase if they were planning to use the facility for competitions or events after hours. If they use it during regular hours, Monday through Friday from 6 to 10, then they'll actually have a lower fee than they would have otherwise. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. The new fee is $56, so I'll move on to this to the next group.
Too many small details
I know.
here. I think you're losing us.
Yeah, I'm getting a little confused myself. So the Group 4 users, and that is Everett Community College and the merchants. The new fees for the next year is $110.50. So that fee in the third year will go up to $178. So for the next year's fee amount, it will be higher than the competition events during regular hours or the practice events currently. It will be lower than the after-hours competition events. And then the third year, it will be $178, so it will be an increase in all of the categories. And then for the Type 4 user, and again, Robert Polk assures me there are none right now. This would be if we had a for-profit group that wanted to use the facility. The new fee amounts would be $132.17 an hour if they did not want to use the stands. If they wanted to use the stands, then it would be $293 per hour. That's for the next year's change. The ultimate fee in the following year would be up to $178 an hour without stands and $380 with the stands.
Category 4.
Yeah, right. I think that's right, if I followed your question. What I'm getting at is for Lincoln Field and for the football field, the new fees are equal to or lower than the current fee schedule. For the baseball, it depends. Some of the fees are higher than the current fees, some of the fees are lower.
Quick question, Mike.
Yes.
On the current fees, it says there's a 2-hour minimum plus custodial charges.
Yes.
Is that true of the new schedule too?
Yes. Well, the new schedule, there's footnotes at the bottom. Let's see. I know that the custodial charges would apply because our custodians have to get in there, and there's a 2-hour minimum charge when they go in and have to clean up after the players and the spectators. Whether we charge other fees, there are other times when we would charge too. For example, supervision costs that might come in, or utilities, if electrical charges for lights if they use it in the evening. So there are times when we would be charging extra, but that would be on top of those posted rates there. So I mentioned that we've met with the Everett merchants in Everett Community College. We've also built in some into these the fee proposal, some mitigation measures. One is the 3-year phase-in instead of having it be all at once. Another one is we moved at Robert Polk's request, we moved the WIAA sponsored tournaments to a lower fee category, the user group 3 instead of 4. I did also want to point out that policy 4333 currently allows for deviations from the fee schedule as long as the deviations shall be based on the benefits received, services rendered, and compensation equivalent to the district's costs and expenses. What I'm getting at is we have a current fee schedule and we have hundreds of users. Every once in a while we get a user that would like to have a lower fee or a higher priority in the fee schedule because the work, the services or the programs that they're offering are ones that overlap ours. So we actually get some benefit for our students that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So, and that would be an example or a situation where we would approve administratively a reduction in the fee per this policy. So there is already a policy in place that says that there may be times when we can vary from the fee schedule. The policy does require that we put together a summary of those, a listing of those exceptions at least once a year and send it to you. That's why in a Friday report once a year, you get an email, a message, from the superintendent, but it comes from me and my departments that summarize the times during the year when we've allowed users an exception to the fee schedule.
Does that mean like Silver Lake Soccer sometimes years ago would do the turkey shoot up at Lincoln Field, and other districts would compete against Silver Lake Soccer. So since there's other districts there, that would be at a district cost, but because it's all the students and Silver Lake Soccer Everett students, would that be an example of an exception because they're like students, or would that turkey shoot maybe potentially cost more because it is multi-district?
That could be an exception.
I don't know. I'm just trying to find an example.
A better example would be if we had a performance group do a series of shows at the Everett Civic Auditorium, and they were going to give free tickets to us to give to our kids. Okay. And this is a real situation that, especially during the holidays, the winter break, we get some performances, and we are given some tickets that we can share with our students that wouldn't be able to attend.
And then they can get a lower cost to use the facility. Yes, and then
we recognize and we give them a break on their fee schedule to accommodate that. So with that, I just wanted to make another couple comments. I have had a couple of meetings now in the last month with Pat Cisneros, Vice President of College Services at Everett Community College. They are, from his comments, they're very interested in developing a user fee agreement with us similar to what we have with the AquaSox, where the college would pay us a certain amount of money every year in return for a certain number of times they could use the facility. We had actually had conversations with them when we were putting the money together originally to be able to do these improvements, and they were not interested at the time. They appear to be interested now, so I'll let you know where that goes as it happens. The other thing is I wanted to say that the two public perspectives on this are very likely. One is that the groups that are going to be charged more might not be able to afford it, and they might have to go somewhere else. We do have other baseball fields that some of those groups could use. We did suggest that to, for example, the merchants, that we have Jackson High School baseball field or any of other high school fields, as do other school districts. And I think Snohomish County and the city of Everett may even have some baseball fields that group could use. They just wouldn't have the use of our baseball stadium if that were to happen. And then the other perspective on this fee schedule would be one that there will be some community members out there who would appreciate that we're charging more actual costs for use of the facility so that we don't subsidize those users and that we're not using money that we should be using for K-12 performance, improvements to subsidize these baseball activities. So with that.
And the new turf field is more expensive to maintain than grass?
I have heard mixed reactions to that. The best answer I can give you is that time will tell. We've not had a high-performance baseball field like this before. It's different than the other fields.
I just feel too, though, that the upgrades we made it a more reliable field, I believe I've heard. And I do agree that we did make a lot of improvements. Aquasox made improvements, the county made improvements to that field, and it's reasonable, I think, to charge just a little bit more.
Mike, are we in discussion at this point?
I'm done with my presentation.
Okay.
I'm
all right.
Open
Thank
for
you.
questions.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take questions. Director Lassane?
Well, my questions are, when you compare the Merchants with Everett Community College, Merchants appears to be more of a nonprofit than a community college, that raises funds or, charges tuition. I look at that as profit, every school that I've ever paid. But there's a difference between the two and the affordability between the two different organizations, correct? As far as their ability to be able to use the facility at the same rate, essentially. Fee charges, correct?
The proposed fee schedule and the current fee schedule have them paying the same rate.
Same rate now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Everett Community College and the Merchants are in the same class of user. They're both
Category.
considered nonprofit, adult-oriented.
Yeah, they're both considered that and for that category. But when you look at them, I see Everett Community College more of a profit organization than the Merchants as a nonprofit organization. And we don't charge the larger fee schedules to those who use the football field, correct? The football field at Memorial Stadium has a different fee schedule than the baseball field.
It's different, but it still has the different groups paid different rates. And the more, there is still a fee schedule that
But it is not the third year is not as great. And the third year is only there because of the new field for the softball field.
For the baseball field.
Baseball field.
Yes.
Baseball
That is correct.
And so the fee then is a lot less for a football field than it is for a baseball field, no matter which category on our schedule.
Well, I think it's just this baseball field.
It's just this baseball field, and it's really only the upper end
schools,
users.
it's the same. Fields at the school are the same.
The category 1, 2, and 3 are probably going to pay about the same or so. I'd have to look at it exactly.
But what I'm saying is that the final fee for a football field is a lot less than for a baseball field.
This baseball field.
This baseball field, yes.
Mm-hmm. This baseball field.
But can I ask, is it similar at our other high schools? If you were to rent a baseball field at Jackson or a football field at Jackson, would it be the same?
It depends more on the type of field. Synthetic turf fields are charged different rates than grass fields.
That was one of my questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
But the turf fields at Jackson are soccer?
Football.
And football?
Yeah. Football is the synthetic surface at Jackson and Cascade.
Okay.
But is Memorial Stadium baseball field the highest charging fee field that we have?
Memorial Stadium baseball field, yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
It is the highest charging field that we have.
The highest rates would be.
Highest rates.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Did you compare these at all to the Freedom Field at Mill Creek?
No, I didn't. That is I believe, a Little League field.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay.
That's not nearly as large.
And it doesn't have all the stands that this one has, the food services that this one has, the parking that this one has?
No, this
Okay.
is minor league professional baseball stadium. Yeah.
So a lot of benefits come with that
Yeah.
price.
Other questions or comments? So you said.
I have
oh,
one more.
Okay, go ahead.
How long has the Merchants been playing at this field?
Didn't he say 45 years?
It's been a long time. I could look back through my notes.
I thought he said 45 years too,
I thought that was his remark.
but I wasn't quite sure.
He said he's been doing this for 45 years.
He's been doing this for 45 years is different than they've been playing there for 45 years.
Well, is the stadium 45 years old?
I don't think the baseball stadium's not 45 years old. No.
Right.
Baseball stadium got started, I think, in the mid 80s.
And they are community or county residents, and the county did help support us on this, correct?
The county did help support us on this. According to what Mr. Pyatt says, the players are recruited from the local high schools, not just ours, but the ones in the surrounding districts.
So they're still within the county. They are county residents.
According to what Harold says, yes.
And college. They're coming back from college.
Yeah, what they are is high school players or college players that did not make the college teams. So the players who did not make community college baseball team.
Actually, that's not true.
Is that not true?
No, I know an individual
Okay.
who played for a very competitive college and came home for the summer
And
to
played
play
with the
on,
Merchants?
and played for the
Okay.
Merchants on a summer team. And he went to school in Seattle.
Okay. So there you go.
Off-season, yeah. There's a bunch of summer leagues, very popular throughout the nation for college kids that want to continue practicing and playing.
So they're not all high school students.
None of them are.
Post-high school.
It's post-high school,
Yeah.
college and local individuals who want to
Said
play
18 to 22
baseball.
was average, I think, or something like that, a range of 18 to 20 something.
But they've been considered a residential, a local minor league, or not even
No, they're just-
minor. What's below
Rec.
minor?
It's just rec,
Recreational?
Pretty competitive level.
I'm sure.
They're in a league with other similar teams like Tacoma. I think a team plays down there and all over the Pacific Northwest. The summer league.
Okay.
So is there another facility in the district that the Merchants could play at that would be, would serve their needs?
We have other facilities that would meet their need for a baseball field. It probably would not be as nice as this.
Sure.
I
yeah.
think both Mr. Pyatt and the Everett Community College staff said that they use our facility as a recruiting tool, basically, to, come and play here, you play with us, kind of a thing. They wouldn't get that with anything else. But they could certainly use our facilities to play a game of baseball on the right size field and all that.
Mike?
Yes.
Did our agreement with the Aqua Sox indicate that we would raise the fees for other users in order to help support the operation of the field and its replacement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Although there are stipulations where we can change the fee for certain organizations that play in our area, that use the facility.
That's in board policy. That's
Yeah,
not in
board
the
policy.
agreement with the
Okay,
Aqua
board
Sox.
policy allows for us to do that.
So the operating costs or the maintenance costs are paid out of our operating fund, but any excess fees go into the capital fund?
Right.
And we're still not clear on whether there are going to be excess fees to go into the capital fund under our new arrangement.
Well, we built the fees so that is what will happen.
Yeah.
As you raise fees, though, if everyone stops using the facility because your fees are too high, then you don't get any revenues.
All right.
So we anticipate this will still generate use by Everett Community College and the merchants, very likely, and that others, and that the fees generated will be more than the maintenance costs, and that those extra monies will be used to maintain the field consistent with our addendum with the Aqua Sox.
Do we anticipate, since it will now be Funko Field, that maybe somebody in that category 4 might be interested in using it at the higher rates?
I think,
category
what I can say, I've heard some
Category 5, sorry.
so a lot of interest out in the community, excitement at the name. I haven't gotten any more phone calls, though, to rent it. But.
Okay, I think we're ready to move forward here. So the recommended action is that the Board of Directors approve the new facility user fees for Memorial Stadium synthetic turf fields for 18-19 and 2019 and 20. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Been moved by Director Mitchell and seconded by Director Mason to the new facility user fees for Memorial Stadium synthetic turf fields for 2018-19 and 2019-20, as set forth in the schedules provided. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Abstentions? You're abstaining? Okay, so,
And I think your board policies, you asked for a reason for the abstention?
your reason for the abstention?
I don't understand enough of this.
Okay. Did you, does not understand enough to vote, to reach a decision, correct? The motion carries.
One thing we did not discuss is having a discussion period. Is there any way that we can look at for a team that has been here for what he said, 45 years? Their residents are, the players are residents of the county. Therefore, the county did help support the purchasing and of the field. Is there any way that we can, through board policy, allow a more reasonable rate so that the merchants can continue to play? We didn't have a discussion. You just,
No. Well, I think pointed out there is a policy. I'm trying to pull it back up here again. Policy that allows for, slide was that on, Mike?
I think it was
policy 4333.
Yeah, 4333, policy 4333. It contains some language that allows exceptions to the fee schedule as long as certain benefits are provided to the district that compensate us appropriately for the reduction in the fees that we would be giving up. And the process that we've developed over time is fairly, structured, so they can certainly apply for a fee reduction through that process.
I just look at it as county residents using a field in which the county did help support us in obtaining, should have the opportunity to continue to use that field at a more reasonable rate than to price them out of the ability to play and to use the field.
I would argue that the user fees are for ongoing maintenance, that the county's contribution was for construction, and to have our maintenance fees accurately reflect what we're spending on the field, I think is important going forward, because the county's not providing additional operational costs. And
I
then
have a concern for
that falls on the folks that use the field.
I have a concern for advocating for one group, which really is for them to negotiate with. If every group came here to have us advocate for them, I think it's a slippery slope potentially.
We can still consider the fact that if other groups come and ask for, we can consider that. Ask
If they
for
consider it.
leniency, in a sense. But when you have had a community group, essentially, residents in the county, have used a facility for so long, and then now they're not able to use that facility.
They're not able to, but it's for them to negotiate with the district.
But I do believe that we need to make every possible argument for them to continue to use that facility, to be able to price them out of it. I just think it's a field in which has become a community field. I mean, everybody here knows Memorial Stadium, and if they've been playing here for such a long time, we should not price them out of the ability to use it. I think that does the county residents, the residents of this community, a disservice by saying, at this point in time, you can't even use it anymore. And I don't know if that's true. The gentleman mentioned it will price them out of the ability to use that field.
Okay, I think we need to move on, but definitely appreciate the comments, and I think that they've been heard. And
thank you.
Yep. Okay, we'll move on to section 13.02, policy 4207, regulation of firearms and dangerous weapons on school district property.
Proposed revisions to policy 4207, regulation of firearms and dangerous weapons on school district property, are proposed for director's consideration this evening in response to a comprehensive program review by OSPI this school year, with recommendations that we add back to this particular community use policy, reporting of dangerous weapons. This particular portion that's being added back into, or is being proposed to be added back in, is based on those comprehensive program review recommendations. However, I do want to share that this particular language is already in our students' 3000 series policies and procedures in response to dangerous weapons and firearms on school campuses, and then corrective action or disciplinary action for doing so. You may recall about 2 years ago when we revised this particular policy, our legal counsel at the time removed this section because it is a student reference response, which would normally be found in our 3000 series, but comprehensive program review has recommended we put it back in.
Any questions, comments, clarification, directors?
I have a question. Our school policy, and I'm actually looking at not the edited part, I'm rereading A through G again. Our policy trumps Washington State law, correct, in like carrying a concealed permit. So an individual, it's kind of like a drug-free zone. We can say absolutely no drugs on campus or no, well, wait, that's actually not a good example.
Your policy does not trump state law. State laws
And to be clear, your policies are written in compliance with state laws.
So someone can carry a concealed permit into a school building if they are lawfully allowed to do so by Washington state law?
Yeah, so if you'll recall, this particular one, which I believe was rigorously discussed at the time of adoption, was the restriction according to state law does not apply to, and all those criteria that are listed, that is straight from statute.
Okay. And then my other question is under F. It says, in possession of a firearm or dangerous weapon that is secured within an attended vehicle or concealed from within view of a locked, unattended. Shouldn't it also be concealed in the first part, not just in an attended vehicle? It needs to be secured and concealed?
Yeah, so the way it's written is that it's secured within the attended vehicle, meaning it's, if the person is inside it, it is in a glove box, let's say, or if we were out in the rural county, it is on some sort of a rack inside the actual cabin of the
So in Washington State, they say that you can't have an open.
But it says, or concealed from view within a locked, unattended vehicle. So one is actually you're in the vehicle with the weapon in your car. And one is saying you're not in the car while it is in the car on our property. So that's the two references in F that it's referring to, the two different stipulations.
Okay, I'm just curious whether that's actually the way Washington state law is written. Because if it's loaded, it has to be concealed, even if you're in the car with it. And here, it doesn't suggest that, so.
Are we talking all firearms?
Loaded.
Loaded firearms.
All loaded firearms. Well, long firearms you can't have in a vehicle if they're loaded. And if it's a pistol and it's loaded, it has to be concealed.
I think maybe the consideration I would refer to is E, which is right above that, precedes F. So if you have a concealed weapons permit or have been given that license by the state of Washington, F then is referring to anybody who is of legal age or an adult, 18 or older, under these conditions with a concealed weapons permit. That's the status of it.
Okay.
And in this case, because a vehicle is private property, even though it's on our school grounds, as long as it stays contained within the vehicle and is out of view with a concealed weapons permit, then that is legitimate.
Okay.
And so I know this is a difficult one, and I remember the conversation we had around it because it is tough, but this is compliant with the law.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Does
This one is no fun.
Does this also?
This one has been no fun from the beginning.
Right. Does this also include staff as well?
Anyone.
Anyone, yeah.
But we don't specifically say anyone is staff too. So I don't want staff to
any
look at it
non-student
says
at
that
least
somebody
18
else
years
done.
legally is thereby as staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thereby staff.
Anybody
Any
who falls
person.
under 18 or older
Okay,
and
gotcha.
has a concealed weapons permit. Yep.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think you got to go back to the paragraph at the top, which says you can't do this stuff. You can't bring these things, except in these circumstances. And this policy applies to everyone. Everyone's everyone.
So I just don't want a staff person said that means another person, not us.
Well, any person is any person.
Any person, I agree.
Any person is any
I
person.
agree, but I just didn't want a staff person to think that that's
Right?
not me.
I mean, I want to make sure that we're all in agreement that when your policy says any person, you're all in agreement that it means any person.
Okay.
Otherwise, we want to go back and ask council to revisit this because you're not happy with the language and bring it back to you with further amendments, which we certainly can do. Because this is really sensitive. This is a really sensitive policy.
I feel comfortable it captures everyone.
Everyone. I agree.
Okay, we will move this for second reading.
Thank you.
To section 14, upcoming agenda items. Dr. Cohn, can you?
Yes, ma'am. Section 14.1, item 14.1 is your special meeting for the 16th of April. That is a study session or work session. I don't remember where we actually land that one. I think we expect a work product from you on that one, so it's a work session. It's your state of school review analysis. Dr. Stewart has been spending weeks and weeks and weeks on that analysis. She went through a rigorous presentation in Cabinet on Monday, and we are so excited for this, we can hardly wait for next week. I'm telling you right now. So you should expect to spend the entire 2 hours deeply embroiled in what state of school review results actually mean. And we're going to be asking you for your response at 3 or 4 points during that process. We're actually going to send you the questions we're going to ask you in the Friday report so you can be thinking about them in advance of that meeting. Item 14.2 is a study session. It is with the Equity and Access Advisory Council. It's an annual update where the council provides you a report on their work during the year and shares with you what they're planning to do, and then asks you for any support that they feel is particularly necessary to advance the equity and access priorities of the district. Dr. Stewart will be acting as your superintendent at that meeting because the Chief Information Officer and the superintendent will be in the air. 14.3 is your regular meeting on May 7. It includes a strategic progress monitoring item on our recruitment, retention, and affirmative action work. You have the 4207 for second reading and adoption, and then policy 6115 schedule fees, fines, and charges. It's the larger the larger fees, fines, and charges set that we bring to you, I think, once a year. And then you have a number of general operating business items, including your annual presentation of the ASB budgets by the ASB officers who've been working really hard to spend down their money and invest in things that you've suggested that they pay attention to. You, I believe, have then a high school growth plan presentation. I believe Cabinet will be going over the report from the committee as soon as the committee actually delivers the final product to us. And then we may well have a property purchase item for you at that time, and a number of other items, including a performance at the outset of your meeting by either the Jackson High School Orchestra or a combined set of orchestras, which I think we also may have playing here in the building prior to the board meeting actually commencing. And those are your upcoming agenda items.
That's like a 5-hour meeting. I mean, the student.
The ASP budget presentations are fairly substantial. I think most of the rest of it is ASP. Yeah, so you've got the high school growth plan, and I'm looking at the rest of it, and I think other than the orchestra performance, I think most of the rest of it's in your consent agenda.
For the high school plan, though, just to clarify, that's for them to present it, but we're not voting at that time or making any decisions potentially at that time, because I think we're moving it forward to summer workshop to make any decisions.
I believe that's your bond committee report. You had committed to make a decision on high school boundaries this spring. This spring. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would advise you not to spend time on it now because it's in the resolution you adopted when you created this work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. On to section 15, executive closed session. We have nothing executive or closed session this evening. So we will move on to section 16.0, adjourn. And April 9th meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.